Hello everyone, my name is Protesilaos, also known as Prot. In this video I want to do a complete demo of my custom desktop session running the binary space partitioning window manager, Bspwm. I am running Bspwm on Debian 10 Buster. This is the current stable release of Debian, which officially releases on the 6th of July 2019. Today is the 2nd of July. Just a few introductory remarks before I proceed to do the video. I have published a series of videos on the matter where I demo the various facets of my custom desktop session, and what I want to do in this specific video is merge all these into a single item. You can watch this and have a fairly solid grasp of what is going on, and then proceed to act on it as you consider necessary. In some of my previous videos I mentioned this, and if you have checked my dot files you're already aware of it. I have written a book that walks you through the steps you need to follow in order to reproduce my custom desktop session on Debian 10 Buster. I released the first official version of this book a few minutes ago. I tagged the releases and pushed everything to my website, to my dot files, to the relevant code repositories. And now I want to sort of announce this also in video form and demo the whole thing. This video is not scripted at all. I might be rambling a bit. I might go off on a tangent or two. Hopefully it won't be too long. The local time here is 3:30. Hopefully by 5 o'clock at the latest we will be out of here. Hopefully sooner than that. With these out of the way, I will proceed now to showcase the various facets of my custom desktop session. Just to say that I will be doing things a bit slower than usual, and I will be explaining what is happening on the screen so that we are sure that we are all on the same page and you are following along and are understanding what is going on. Furthermore, I will be using a program called Sxhkd. This was recommended to me by a commenter on one of my videos. Sxhkd will just show the keys that I am pressing at the lower part of the screen, and this will help you further follow the steps that I am doing. With these out of the way, let's go on to the presentation. What you are looking at here, the screen that you are looking at here, is exactly what you will be greeted to the first time you log into the Bspwm session, assuming you have followed all the steps that are documented in my book. I will start by showcasing the basic motions of Bspwm, and I will do that using terminal windows, but what I am showing here applies to windows in general, any kind of window, not just the terminal windows. So the web browser or the email client, the file manager, whatever application you spawn is treated the same way. There are some exceptions that I will discuss later in the video when I will talk a bit about external rules. Let's go on to the basic motions of Bspwm. I just spawn a window here, a terminal, and I will now activate Sxhkd. So now you should be seeing the key presses. You can spawn a generic terminal, this is Xterm, by pressing Super Shift and Enter, and doing so again continues to spawn terminals. We see here that the automatic tiling scheme follows a Windows spiral, so the more I do, the spiral moves inwardly. So the oldest window is the one that is at the base of the spiral, and then as we move outwardly, this is the newest window at the very edge, at the very end of the spiral. We can adjust the gaps between windows dynamically by pressing Super Shift and either of the bracket keys. So Super Shift and the right bracket key will increase the gaps, and Super Shift and the left bracket key will decrease the gaps. We can also change to gap presets by pressing the keys that are above the home row. So Super Shift and Y reduces the gaps to 0, Super Shift and U to 5 pixels, Super Shift and I to 10 pixels, and Super Shift and O to 20 pixels. These are presets, so you can do the dynamic, the incremental change, which is 5 pixels at a time, or you can do the presets. The default value is, unless I'm mistaken right now, 4 pixels. The gap between windows is 4 pixels. So I will close now a few windows. You close a window by pressing Super and Q, and this closes the focused window, and all the windows are closed that way. You can kill a window by pressing Super Shift and Q. This is useful when the window has lagged and it is not responsive and stuff like that. Super Shift Q kills the window. It kills without asking for confirmation, whereas closing the window will ask for confirmation. You switch focus between windows by holding down Super. By the way, Super is the key that on most keyboards is marked by the Windows logo, stained, if you will, by the Windows logo. And you move focus by holding down Super and pressing the Vim directional keys, so H, J, K, L. So if I press Super and L, I move to the right. Super and H, I move to the left. Super and J, I move down. Super and K, I move up. If you want to switch the position of the focused window with a window in the given direction, you press, let me actually type something. So this is the window. I want to move this window to the position of the window that is to its left. I press Super Shift and the Vim direction keys, and this moved it to the left. If I move it to the right, it will move it to the latest window on the right side, and it moves it right there. If I move it up, if I move it down, and so on and so forth. We can close this. Just to make sure, yes, we have this. We can now, let me spawn a few windows again. We can resize windows dynamically by pressing Super Control, holding down Super Control, and pressing the directional keys. So if I press Super Control and L, it increases the size of this window in the given direction. And if I press Super Control and H, it decreases the size of the window. Up and down does not work for this window, so J and K do not work for this window because there is no split to be resized. Whereas if I go here, we see that, let me increase the gap so that you can see a bit. You see that there is a split between this and those two. So the resizing operates on the split. And we can see exactly this in action. Very well. More stuff. Let's spawn some windows again. We can rotate the layout, and we can do this by pressing Super and R, and this will rotate by 90 degrees clockwise. We can see that it does that. We can also do the same counterclockwise, so we press Super Shift and R, and it does the rotation counterclockwise. We can also flip the layout by pressing Super Alt and R. What this does is it mirrors it on the opposite end, so the top, actually let's do it again, so the bottom right becomes the top left. And that's it. And this covers the basic motions. Oh, no, actually there is one more. As I said, this is the automatic tiling scheme that moves windows in a spiral. But other than that, we can have manual placement of windows. So we don't just need to do things automatically. Suppose now that I want to spawn a window below this one. I can use what is called in Bspwm a pre-selection. And you input a pre-selection by pressing Super and Alt and the direction key. So if you see here, there is a different colored background here, and this denotes the area where the next window will be spawned. So this is the pre-selection, and you can move the pre-selection in any direction you want. Furthermore, just let me spawn a window just to make sure. We see that it took the position of the pre-selection as was my intention. Let's remove that again. Now let's enter another pre-selection. You can change the size of the pre-selection, which is always a ratio of the size of the focused window. So if you press Super Alt and the numbers 1 to 9, you will see that the pre-selection is changing size. So you see, so I made the pre-selection that it is 9/10 of the focused window. And if I want now, this is the default is always the split ratio, which I have configured to 0.5. This is the default. Later in the video, I will show some more advanced features of this. There is another concept in Bspwm called receptacles that are empty frames, but I will discuss this a bit later in the video. Now let's have a look at the default terminal emulator. So if you press Super and Enter, it will spawn a terminal emulator running Tmux. In case you don't know, Tmux is a terminal multiplexer, and what it does is it manages multiple windows centrally. The very basic interaction you can have with the multiplexer is to place terminals next to each other. They are pseudo terminals. Pseudo, not S-U-D-O, but P-S-E-U-D-O. So fake terminals. So the basic action is to spawn pseudo terminals by splitting the terminal you are looking at. So you always input commands to Tmux by invoking the prefix key. This is the default behavior. However, there are some commands that do not require the prefix key. The prefix key is configured to the default, which is Control and B. And then, if you see here, there is a green color here, denoting that Tmux has received the prefix key and is now waiting for the next key to perform the action that I have configured in the Tmux conf, in the Tmux file. So I will now do a vertical split. So the key sequence for that is Control B and then V. Control B and then V, and this does a vertical split of the focused pane. These are called panes. These splits, these pseudo terminals are called panes, and you can remove a pseudo terminal by pressing the prefix key, so Control B and then X. So I will now do a vertical split, and now I will do a horizontal split. The horizontal split is Control B and then S. This is Vim users should be familiar with these keys, with the S and the V, because they are used when you want to do window splitting inside of Vim that you do with Control W and then S or V. As we see here, the size of the panes is asymmetric. And we can remedy that by pressing the prefix key and then capital E, which evenly spreads out the panes, the focused pane and the ones adjacent to it all the way to the top or the bottom. That's the very basics of it. Other than panes, Tmux has a concept of windows. So windows are holding panes. And we can see here at the top that there is, by the way, this is the status area at the top. It's called the status area. So we can see here at the status area at the top that there is number 1 and the name of the window. I can spawn a new window by pressing the prefix key and then the letter C. So create a new window. And we see that the new window has just one terminal. And I can do the same thing, spawn terminals here. Sudo terminals panes here, and windows hold panes. Now let's go back to the first window. You can navigate through windows by pressing Alt Shift and the Vim keys for right or left, so H or L, and I am doing just that now. Or you can input a number, but I prefer to do it this way. To navigate panes, you hold down Alt and press the Vim keys. So Alt L, J, K, and H will move focus in the given direction. Another feature of Tmux, let's let screen key clear. Another feature of Tmux is the ability to synchronize input to panes. So if you press the prefix key and then the letter A, this now is synchronous input. If you notice, the status area at the top has an indicator telling us that sync is on. And if I type something now, hello world, we see that it has been propagated across all the panes in the focused window. So if I go to the next window, I see that this remains exactly as it was. There are no, syncing is always limited to the given window. And you can exit the synchronous state by inputting the same command again. So prefix and A. Tmux provides a scroll buffer that actually let's actually cut some information so that we have a scrollback buffer. I just outputted the contents of my bash RC. So Tmux has a scrollback buffer that you can navigate using Vim keys. You can enter the scrollback buffer just by using the scroll on your mouse, the wheel on your mouse, or you can press the key binding and have for that, which is Control and space. You do not have to press the prefix key. So Control space enters the so-called copy mode, and it is denoted in the status area that I am in copy mode. And you can navigate the copy mode by pressing Vim keys up and down. You can also go Control U for a half page up, Control D for a half page down, and the like. You can select text using V, and this will select text. You can also do, you can also do Control V to select lines, same as with Vim, or you can toggle rectangle selection by pressing R. By the way, if you are selecting text, another indicator will pop up showing you that you are doing exactly that. So you can toggle the rectangle selection by pressing R. If you see now, this is a rectangular area, and you can select exactly this. Only Tmux provides this as far as I am aware. And this toggles back to the per line or per rectangle area behavior by pressing R again. And you select text the normal way you do in Vim by pressing the Y key for yank. And you paste text afterwards by pressing Control Shift V, which is the standard paste from clipboard you would expect, or by entering the copy mode again and pressing P. I don't want to do that now because I copied something random and I don't want to, actually let's do it. Let's actually do this, so nothing harmful. We exit the copy mode and I didn't do it correctly. I did something wrong. What happened? Anyhow, I mistyped something. Anyway, if you pressed Ctrl, Shift, and V, it will work. But yeah, that's correct. My mistake. My apologies. I didn't have it configured to just press with P because I thought it was bad behavior to have to enter copy mode again and press P. I kept the default, which is a very inconvenient hotkey, which is prefix and then the right square bracket, and you see it is pasting the thing there. I didn't implement a custom key for this for the sake of usability. Now, other than windows and panes, Tmux has a concept of sessions, and you can run sessions in the foreground, what I am doing here, or in the background. So the way you would create a session, I will just create one. By the way, this enters the command mode. So you will do new session. I enabled the tab completion, and then you want to pass the flag. You want to pass S to name it, and then a name. So demo session. And this creates now a new session. I am in the new session now, and this is shown here. And if you want to go, and of course you can do the same work here. You can spawn windows, you can spawn panes, the exact same behavior. You can run programs as you wish, the exact same behavior. Sorry. Now if you want to have an overview of the panes, you do Control B and then Q. If you want to have an overview of the session, Control B and W. Let's have a look at the information on display here. We see that the default session has two windows. We see here the default session has two windows, and below we see a preview of what each window contains. We see that window number 1 has 4 panes, and it is displaying the information within each pane, whereas window number 2 has 5 panes, and we can see here that they are all empty ones, whereas demo session, which is the one I just spawned, is the one that is attached. This means that it is the one I am currently running in the foreground, whereas the default session is in the background. So the current session, the demo session, the attached session, has 2 windows again, and I can see the same information here. And you can navigate things, and you can go to the given window, or you can switch sessions as well. So I can go back to session number 1, and you see this is very seamless. It's very easy, very trivial to just change sessions. Of course, as you can imagine, this is a very powerful feature because you can organize your work, your terminal related work, terminal emulator related work in a very efficient way. You can keep track of things. You can, the way I do it at least, you can have a session for each task. Within each session you can have windows that pertain to the various facets of the task at hand, and then of course within those windows you will have panes that organize your work step by step. And whenever you are in the process of switching to the other task, you just do that. Very simple. You can have something running in the background, something related to your server, something related to your work, whatever, and something running in the foreground, which is what you are doing right on the spot. Why all this matters? Why do you want to do this? Other than all the niceties that Tmux provides, such as synchronizing input and stuff like that, is that Tmux has persistent state, a persistent state. So if I press, remember that I told you Super and Q closes the window. Say that I close this window. What will happen? Will I lose all my work now? Or I put all this effort into it just to lose it because I mistyped something? Let's close it and see what happens. The window has been closed. But if I press super and enter again, I will bring up the Tmux window, and I have configured it in such a way so as to attach back to the default session, from where of course you can navigate to the other sessions that you are running. Just to show you the command that does the attachment, it is the full command. It is tmux new session. There's no new session, and then you pass the flag A, capital A, and then the session name. So tmux new hyphen session, and then the option capital A, then lowercase s, and the name of the session. And this means that if the session exists, attach to it, else spawn the session with the given name. I believe this offers a primer on Tmux. I think this is a very powerful tool. It is quintessential to my daily work. It is an irreducible factor of what I do. In fact, I will go as far as say that I prefer, if I had to choose, I would definitely choose Tmux over Bspwm. It is more important than the window manager itself, because I am primarily a terminal user, and I do everything in the terminal. Another nice feature of Tmux is that it allows you to script things and send keys across all your panes, and you can do this for each window or for multiple windows. I will show a practical demo of this a bit later in the video, when I will discuss the live theme switch that I have, which is an important aspect of my dot files. More on that a bit later. Keep a note of it. A last thing, just to be sure. Why would you want to have a terminal multiplexer and not do something like this? So spawn terminals and then work with these. I think this is very inefficient, because these terminals are do not communicate between them. You cannot synchronize input to them, for instance. You cannot group them per session. You can group them per desktop, per workspace, but it's still not the same thing, because you are not controlling them centrally and moving them around across sessions and stuff like that. And furthermore, when you are doing work in multiple terminals like this, you are always limited to the desktop you are on, the computer, you are on. Whereas with Tmux, you can log into a remote computer, or you can use Tmux without a window manager. You can use Tmux in GNOME, you can use Tmux in a TTY, you can use Tmux wherever you can run a CLI program. You can run Tmux. Dare I say, I'm not 100% sure, but this is the impression I get. So Tmux is a superb tool. If you have never used it, you should definitely give it a try. Ever since I started using it, I feel like there is no going back. I will never use a terminal again without a multiplexer. And as a Vim user, the last thing I should add here is that with Tmux, I was able to finally eliminate all plugins from my vimrc, at which point I should show you my vimrc. Let's also maximize the pane. You can do this by pressing Ctrl B and then Ctrl M, or Ctrl B and Z. I don't do the one with Z because it is close to X, which closes the pane. I prefer Ctrl B, and while holding down Ctrl, I press M. Fairly easy. So this is my vimrc. This is the whole thing. You saw it? It is 89 lines with comments included. So it is a very small vimrc. It is in stark contradiction to what most people have, which is like 80 lines just for plugins. Okay, I'm exaggerating, but you get the idea. I have no plugins whatsoever, and the reason is that I don't need them. and I don't need them because I can rely on the multiplexing provided by Tmux, and then the built-in features of Unix, the various Unix tools like ls or cp or cat or find, or you get the idea, you get where I am going with this. You let Tmux be a specialized tool, you let Vim be a text editor and nothing more, nothing less, and you work that way, the Unix way. Whereas if you really want to turn your text editor into an infinitely customizable integrated development environment, I think Vim is not the right tool for it. I think you should seriously consider Emacs, GNU Emacs. I will not go into that. It is outside the scope of my .files. I don't provide any configs for Tmux. I have experimented with it. I think I might use it at some point, but for the time being, I am a Vim and Tmux user. I believe this covers it for the Tmux as well. So the default terminal emulator is Tmux. By the way, the program, the terminal emulator itself, is Xterm, and I have a chapter in my .files dedicated to the default terminal emulator. This is mostly me talking, not typing stuff. Just to say that I had the misconception when I started using GNU Linux maybe some 3 years ago, something like that. I had the misconception that Xterm is some piece of legacy software that is only provided for the sake of compatibility with some ancient stuff that no one really cares about. That's what I believed when I first started using a free operating system. And over the course of my GNU Linux journey, I experimented with RxVT Unicode, URxVT, all the VT-based terminals, so GNOME terminal, Mate terminal, XFCE terminal. I also used for a period the KDE terminal emulator, console with a K. I also used the simple terminal by Sxhkd.org. And to cut the long story short, I thought I dismissed Xterm without ever giving it a fair chance. And this was a big mistake of mine, because once, fairly recently, about a month ago, out of sheer curiosity, I was like, okay, let me install this thing and see how bad it actually is. I had some free time, I was like, okay, why not? So I installed it, I read the man page, I was blown away, very comprehensive documentation, top notch. This is something I highly value. When I read the program and I appreciate the man page, I start to think that this is a good program. So the man page is very detailed, very thorough, very comprehensive, and I started configuring Xterm. So I got exactly the looks that I was interested in, and then I went to the Debian website where I searched for the package, because I wanted to have a look to link to the upstream source. I went to the upstream source and I checked the changelog, and lo and behold, Xterm is a piece of software that has been maintained all this time, and it is being actively developed. The last commits were like a month ago or something like that, maybe even less, maybe a few weeks ago. Yeah, so to cut the long story short, Xterm is an exceptional piece of software. It is definitely much better than I thought. It is lightweight, it is robust, it works. In fact, just to spawn Mate terminal, just to show you something. So I will bring up D menu, by the way. You can invoke it with super and the letter D. And I will search for Mate terminal, sorry. This is the terminal that comes with the desktop environment called Mate. I have a chapter in that in my book. So this is Mate. Mate terminal. And if I do echo term, let's see what it will give us. Xterm 256 color. This is not Xterm, this is Mate. If I right click, I can see already preferences, and you can see this is not Xterm. This is the VTE based terminal using the GTK3 toolkit. Not that I have something against this, but when I first stumbled upon this, I started suspecting that things are a bit fishy. Why pretend to be something that you are not? And in fact, this is something that the upstream provider of Xterm discusses, and has a whole section of not just the VTE based terminals, but also some of the misinformation that is spread by other sources that want to replace, that purport to replace and greatly improve upon Xterm, such as Suckless and the simple terminal. What they are stating in the presentation of ST is, according to the upstream provider of Xterm, a falsehood. You will have to check the links in my book to find more about that. Let's quit this. Yeah, so I showed you D menu. You invoke it with super and the letter D, and D menu brings up an interface to all your executables, and you can filter them and do things like that. It has a fuzzy search of sorts. Not to bother you too much with this. You can spawn graphical application. No, actually no. Let's do something else. Let me show you a few things about Sxhkd, which is the simple X hotkey daemon. Let me rename this window. You can do it in Tmux by pressing prefix and then comma. Sxhkd. Let's rename this window so that we know where to find it. And let's go to the repository, to the directory that contains the files for Sxhkd. Before we do that, in my book I inform you that if you press super and F1, a floating window will spawn containing a cheat sheet with the basic information you need to get started. So it explains what I am about to explain in further detail right now. So this is the cheat sheet, and it should be enough to get you started. So you exit the cheat sheet, it disappears. Sxhkd is divided, the configs are divided in two modules. The one is Sxhkd RC, and the other is Sxhkd RC _BSPC. The latter concerns actions that control Bspwm, whereas the former, so without the BSPC part, is the one that controls everything else. For example, how I spawn terminals or how I invoke D menu. So let's have a look at Sxhkd RC. By the way, you can increase the size of the font in the terminal by pressing Control Shift and page up, and page down decreases the size, and page home goes Control Shift home resets the value. So let's increase the size a bit, and let's have a look at various things. As is the norm with most of the stuff I have in my dot files, things are very well documented. So even if you don't understand anything, you are a complete newbie, you should be up and running fairly quickly just by having a look at the comments in each section. Let me start with the key chord that I have already demoed. So hotkeys are called in Sxhkd terminology key chords. So like how you play the piano. I don't know how to play the piano, by the way. I've seen other people and I enjoy it. So let's have a look at this thing here. So you see it. I will decrease the size now, and I will run a demo with the exact same information. So in Sxhkd, you have two lines. The first line contains the key sequence, what you are pressing. And the second line, which must always start with the tab character or empty space, is the command that corresponds to that sequence of key presses. So now if I do super and return, just to type it out. So super and return means hold down super, so the Windows key, and press return. Return is the enter key. And what this would do, if this were the default, it would spawn Xterm. And then you can have another command, another key chord, this way. So super, shift, and return spawns Xterm. So if you have a look at what is the default in my config, you will notice that I have two different things. One launches Xterm with Tmux, and the other launches plain good Xterm. So I can do it here as well. I already showed this command a bit earlier, which is to attach or create a new session in Tmux. Oh, sorry, I forgot to add Tmux here. Oh, my habit of saving whenever I make a change. So I saved this file. No worries, no stress. So we can see here that I have super and return to spawn Xterm running Tmux, and super, shift, and return to just spawn Xterm. But we can merge these into a single invocation, a single definition, sorry, which is like this. And then I have it here. No need to type the whole thing again. You can see it here. Just put it there. So this thing here, so these three lines here, these two lines here, effectively combine the other two above. So rather than doing defining each command on its own, you can define them in parallel by using some smart syntax here. And what this does, just to be absolutely, actually, why did I remove it? Just to be absolutely clear, and so we are perfectly transparent. If you check this, let's increase the font size a bit. Actually, this is something I didn't show before. You can change the layout of Tmux panes on the spot by using presets. This is included in my Tmux config. I won't discuss it here. So let's have a look at this, a closer look. You will see that there is an underscore here. This stands for an empty space. And what this means, if you read it, it means super and empty space return represents the first command. So it represents this thing here. And then super shift return represents the second command. And I already showcased this, where if I press super and return, I get exactly the session I have on Tmux. If I press super shift, I return, I get Xterm, the standard terminal emulator. Let's go back to this. And in the same spirit, you can define any kind of array. So for example, super and 029, and this should navigate desktops. There is an option to navigate desktops. I will discuss this a bit later because I have a custom workflow that implements dynamic desktops in Bspwm, which is not a default feature, and it is something I want to spend some more time on. And you can have other definitions as well, super and 1, 2, 3, or A, B, C, and of course you can use as many modifier keys as you want, as many keys as you consider necessary. I have a video actually in my backlog, if you check, that documents that explains Sxhkd in greater detail. Now I just want to show you some of the real world, some of my actual implementations here, so that you, rather than me trying to come up with random examples. Have a look at this here. Super and X, and then a semicolon sign and numbers 3 through 5. The semicolon sign represents a keycord chain. This means that you press Super and X, and then the program awaits for you to press what is to the right of the semicolon sign in order to invoke the corresponding command. So if I press now Super X and then the number 4, for example, it will spawn Newsboat. Super X 4. It opens an Xterm with Newsboat. It will load my feeds. I don't want to delve into that. I have a chapter in my books as well about Newsboat as well. By the way, information about my book and my dot files will be in the description of this video as well, and I will also present it a bit later. So we see here that we can define things in parallel. So these things here share a similar syntax, and then they differ only at this part. So we define the key so that the array at the top corresponds to the array at the bottom. Let me see if I have some better examples of this, some other things that would be of interest. Okay, actually let's go to the other config file. And see what we have here. Yeah, so you can see that things can become very complex. For example, this thing here. You can see this is a very terse definition. It is very hard to read at first. You will be bamboozled. Similar with the one below. If you are not familiar with Sxhkd, this will seem like indecipherable stuff. Thankfully, I have the documentation here, which explains exactly what is going on. And by the way, these are the stuff that I will showcase a bit later. These are some of the advanced features, some of the scripted features of my Bspwm. This one concerns dynamic desktops, as I mentioned a bit earlier. And we can see that in general, Bspwm Sxhkd has a very smart way of defining things. You can define lots of commands in parallel, and this allows you to have key sequences, which is something that you don't usually get. Usually you just have in window managers or desktop environments, usually you just have a single key press that involves a modifier key or two, but you don't have Sxhkd's notion of keycord chains, so pressing multiple keys in order to perform actions. At which point I want to showcase another thing, another feature of Sxhkd, which is a bit less known, even though it is included in the man page. But of course, who has time to read man pages, right? And this is, there is no name for it unless I am mistaken, so I am calling it the continuous input mode, because this is exactly what it is. I will show it in practice. Remember earlier that I adjusted the size of the gaps between windows by pressing, I will do it again, Super Shift and the bracket keys. So you can see in the screen key below that I am holding down Super and Shift and pressing the bracket key to perform the operation. With Sxhkd, let's bring this here, with the continuous mode, you can do the same thing, you can perform the same action without always having to press the modifier keys. So I will show you this. It's this thing here. It's Super C and then the colon sign and then bracket left or bracket right. So what is so you press Super C, this enters the continuous input mode, and Sxhkd is continuously listening to you. It is continuously checking for your key presses and performs the action that is assigned to them. So I will do just that now. Super C, and then I press brackets. So you see the screen key information below. I change the size of the gaps without having to use modifier keys all the time. And you exit continuous mode. You see it continuously waits for you. It will not exit on its own. You exit it by pressing escape. So if I press now the bracket keys, nothing happens. I prefer that you go through my configs when it comes to things like this, so that I don't demo absolutely everything, because I can see that we have already spent quite a while. It's already it's 20 past 4. I prefer that you go through my configs yourself and have a better idea of how to do things. Furthermore, I recommend that you always start with the basics. You have to nail the basic motions. Don't bother yourself with the advanced features, because if you try to learn everything at once, you will get confused. Whereas if you learn the basics, just moving around, just switching the position of windows, the stuff I already showed, once you get a hang of these, then you will see that it's fairly easy to learn the new things, because they basically build on that foundation of knowledge that you have accumulated. Let's close some windows here. Now I want to showcase, actually I'm not sure what I want to showcase now. Yeah, let's do that. Let's showcase let's talk a bit about the panel, what you see here at the top. I'm not sure how exactly that looks, how good that you can see that. So what I will do for the purposes of this demo is that I will increase, I should have done this in advance actually, and now I will just have to increase the size of the fonts a bit. This should have been done earlier. I'm not sure what I have to adjust now. Maybe this. Let's see if what I did now works. By the way, you can reload the panel by pressing the keycord chain, Super E, and then the letter P. Oh, it worked. I'm not sure if these are big enough. Let's make it 20 will probably be better. Yeah, this should be good. I believe you can read what is displayed on the panel here. So the panel is drawn by a program called Lemonbar. Now Lemonbar is a beautifully simple program because it does only one thing: print whatever you pipe into it. So by default, if you invoke Lemonbar, it will just draw an empty panel. So this is why I have this script here that I just tweaked, called Melon Panel. It is a funny name. It just takes lemon and turns it around. Sorry, I need to drink some water from time to time. Yeah. So it just takes lemon and turns it around, and then bar becomes panel. So Melon Panel is the script that pipes all the information you see here. It parses it, cleans it up, and then pipes it to Lemonbar. And this is what we get here. So now I want to show you, to talk a bit about the modules that you see here on the panel. So this is the battery module. This is the core temperature. If it increases higher, it will change colors. If it falls, which will not happen in this demo, it will just turn white, the regular color. The next is the volume of the speakers, the speaker volume, and then time and date and time, if you will. And on the other end of the panel, we have the module that displays information about Bspwm. So this displays the desktops, and then a couple of things here that I will be discussing right away. So let's start with the indicators about the desktops. So if you see here, you will see that desktop number 1 is wrapped around square brackets, and it's also drawn in a brighter, in a bold font. And this means that it is the desktop that is currently in focus. Whereas if you see desktop number 9 has a caret sign, and this means that it is occupied. On desktop number 9, I am running the program that is recording this video. It's called OBS Studio. No need to switch to that. So if I now switch to desktop number 2, I will be, by the way, I will be demoing the panel. I will be explaining the panel, and also as a bonus doing the dynamic desktops right away. So if I switch to desktop number 2, I use this, I press super and a number, and this moves to the desktop. So this is desktop number 2. Super and 2 is desktop number 2. Super and 3, desktop 3, 4, and so on. If we see here, we see again that desktop number 1 is occupied, desktop number 2 has focus, desktop number 9 is also occupied. If I now switch to desktop number 1 again, desktop number 2, because it's dynamic desktops, will cease to exist. It will disappear. That's the idea with this script. It creates or removes desktops on the spot. For desktop number 2 or any given desktop to persist, it must hold Windows. It must be occupied. So if I now switch to desktop number 1, I see in my panel that desktop number 2 is occupied. And there are two other asterisks here that I will explain exactly now what they are doing. The first asterisk concerns the layout of the focused desktop. And there are two layouts in Bspwm: the tiled layout or the so-called monocle layout. Monocle is another word for maximized. So let me have the tiled layout. So this is the tiled layout, the one you would normally be using. And if you want to toggle monocle, you press super and the letter M. And we see now that the focused window always is in a maximized state. And you can navigate through windows in a monocle view by pressing Alt-Tab. I have this as well. And of course Alt-Tab does the same thing in tiled view, always in the local desktop, in the present desktop. So monocle is denoted in the panel by the letter M in the position of the first asterisk. I decided there are two options. This is provided by a built-in feature of Bspwm. There are two options, either the letter T or the letter M. I decided to replace the letter T with an asterisk because this is what you normally get, and I want it to be this way because when you see a switch, it's easier to the eye, it is more perceptible. When you see the letter M come in, you will notice it, whereas if there is always a letter over there, it might take an extra millisecond or whatever to understand that something has changed. So I believe this is a bit better. So that's it. Then the second asterisk concerns node flags. If you read the man page, so man BSPC or man Bspwm, it's the same thing. And if you search for node flags, there is a section here which explains what each flag is about. In my own Sxhkd, I have hotkeys for assigning 4 flags. So sticky, private, locked, and marked. So I just read from the man page. Sticky stays in the focused desktop of its monitor. Private tries to keep the same tiling position and size. Locked ignores the node close message. This means you cannot close it by pressing super and Q, which I already showed. And marked is marked, in parentheses, useful for deferred actions, so basically for doing something at a future point. A marked node becomes unmarked after being sent on a pre-selected node. In a bit I will do some demo of some advanced features that leverage marked flags, marked nodes. Now I just want to show you the stuff on the panel. So you assign a flag to the focused window by pressing the keycord Super and A, and then any of the letters that start the flags. So Super A and the letter M will mark the focused window. Super A and the letter S will make it sticky. Super A and the letter L will make it locked. Super A and the letter P will make it private. And we can see all of them in action here. S, P, L, M. These are the four node flags. And if you also have a monocle view, this is what you will get. The complete layout of the panel is this specific state here. In my book, I have an annex. When I discuss the panel, I have an annex that provides some information on a fork of Lemonbar that provides support for Xft, because the upstream provider is only able to display bitmap fonts, so fixed size fonts like the one you are seeing here, whereas Xft or proportional or else outline fonts are the ones that you are probably familiar with, like the Deja Vu family, Deja Vu Sans Mono, Roboto, Noto Sans. You get the point. All the common fonts, Times New Roman, whatever. These are all outline or proportional fonts, and the ones you are probably used to. So I have an annex where I provide some information about my fork of Lemonbar with support for Xft. This is not standard. I do not recommend you do this. It is explained in my book. The information is just there for you in case you want to assume responsibility, and there is a section here exactly talking about that. In the panel, of course, is a shell script, a bash in bash, and basically if you know a bit of shell scripting, you can go through this and tweak everything to your liking. Just to show where is it? No, let screen key disappear because I cannot see. So I am running my fork of Lemonbar. This is not the upstream. My book only provides information about the upstream, and all instructions are about it. But here I have my private fork. So if I reload Lemonbar now, you will see that it has a nicer font, in my opinion. This is Deja Vu Sans condensed, but I will not be using that for the purposes of this demo. We stick to the bitmap font. I switch back to that, and I explain in the files in the files that I link to concerning the fork of Lemonbar. I explain why I had to fork it in order to provide support for Xft. In very short, very quickly, it's because bitmap fonts cause me all sorts of problems, especially when working with light themes. And I think this offers a good segue into one of the core features. The core features of my custom desktop session, which is the ability to switch themes on the spot and perform a live theme switch. The themes in question is a standalone project of mine. It's called the Tempest themes. Tempus is a Latin word standing for time. And the Tempest themes are designed to fill in a perceived void in the theming space, which is accessible fonts. Fonts that have a considerate color contrast between the background and the foreground. This is a very technical topic. I will not delve into the specifics. Suffice to say that most of the themes you are used to are not accessible themes. This is not to say that they are ugly or they have not been designed well enough. It's just to say that they do not have accessibility in mind. Whereas Tempest themes, the themes that I am using in my custom desktop session, are, in my opinion, well designed, but also accessible. Enough with that. Let's have a look at the Tempest themes. I will invoke a front end to the script that performs the theme change. It's called Tempest menu, and this is a D menu interface that you can bring up by pressing the keycord chain Super E and then the letter T, and this will provide you with an option to select the Tempest theme of your choice. Some themes are dark, others are light. Some have a contrast ratio of 4.5 to 1, so this is the lowest minimum threshold, and others have a higher threshold of 7 to 1. So these are the most accessible themes. And in my book, I provide information of which is which. But for example, some names should already offer a hint. So for example, Tempest Day is of course expected to be a light theme, whereas Tempest Night is of course a dark theme. Before I do the switch, I should warn you that if you have a very bright monitor and you have cranked everything to the maximum, make sure you lower it a bit, because I will switch to a light theme, and if you are now used to very high brightness, it might stutter you. Furthermore, I want to showcase how this also works with Flatpak applications and with graphical applications more generally. I will spawn a Flatpak application. Okay, so we have here a timer, a GNOME application. And let's now invoke Tempest menu, and let's switch to a light theme. Let's switch to Dawn, which is a nice subtle gray theme, and we do that. You see everything changed. We can see the background has changed. Sorry, let's show me the background. Yeah, sorry, I have this. I had the sticky flag, so yeah, show me the background. We see that the background has changed. There is more to it. Let me run Vim. Normally Vim you have to exit and enter again, but I have configured it so that it will live reload as well. And this extends to all other applications that are part of my desktop session. So graphical applications and everything within the terminal. The program that does the heavy lifting is called Tempest. And Tempest is an acronym, is a backronym. It's so a contrived word which stands for themes every meticulous person ultimately seeks. So we must make some fun of ourselves from time to time. So Tempest is the script that performs live theme changes between the Tempest themes. That's the idea of it. And it is a shell script as well. You can go through it and tweak it to your liking. If you want to do a live theme switch from the terminal, you will just run Tempest. If you run it without an argument, it will print a message informing you what you should do, which is to pass an argument to it, and it offers some of the options. Let's also print the colors of the current terminal. This is another program of mine, PTP, print Tempest palette. So let's run now Tempest, and let's switch to another dark theme that has a higher contrast. Let's switch to Tempest Night. We see here it's a very different presentation. You see here the colors are brighter, everything is more vibrant. Let's switch to what I call a green scale theme, Tempest. You can see here everything is like green color has been washed on top of it. Let's also run. Let's also have a script so that you can see some part of the code as well. Now, okay, this is not important. So just to see a bit, let's just change a few themes as well. You can see things are changing live. I'm just using the Tempest menu now because it's easier. Let's remove this. You get the idea. You just pass an argument to it and it works. I won't go through all the themes. I'm now switching to a light theme. Again, the warning about your display. You see everything changes, Tmux changes, Vim changes. Let's go to another light theme. This has a very high contrast. This is one of my favorites, even though some people may think it is a bit too stark. I like it. Tempest totus. Yeah, this is it about the Tempest themes. The gist of it is this. I think they are very pleasant to work with. And this feature is a compelling feature, for me at least, because I am working on a laptop. This is a ThinkPad, Lenovo ThinkPad X220, and I often find myself in circumstances, maybe I am at the farm or somewhere else, and where I need to use the laptop, and I don't want to be under direct sunlight and try to read white text on a black screen. It's impossible to read under direct sunlight. So in cases like that, I just do something like this, and I have everything turned into a light theme, which is very pleasant to work with when everything outside is very bright. And when you are home and the light in the environment is lower, you can switch back to a dark theme. Tempest Classic, what you are seeing here, is the default theme you will be getting, and it's trivial to change and use whatever you want. I believe this covers it concerning the Tempest themes. Actually, yeah, let's discuss the wallpaper a bit very quickly. By default, I do not set any wallpaper. In the testing releases, the beta releases prior to the official release of my .files, of my book, Prots Dots for Debian is the title of the book, PDFD is the acronym. So in the preparatory stage towards the official release, I had support for a fallback wallpaper. However, I reviewed this and I do not distribute any image with my .files. This is something that the user should do. What I have in my own setup, and this is detailed also in my scripts and in the book, is that I define a couple of images in the path of the home directory, pictures, theme, and then here I have a couple of images, a dark one and a light one, and I have configured the script to read from this path, and if the Tempest theme is a light theme, use the light image. If it is a dark theme, use the dark image. So you can see here this is the dark image. If I switch to a light theme, it uses the light image, and back again. If you don't have images in the path, then the wallpaper will not change. The program that does set the wallpaper is called Feh, F-E-H, and the way you would assign a wallpaper is, unless I am mistaken now, it's been so long since I used this, let's see if it works. Yeah, so it's Feh, and then you pass the option BG scale, and then a path to the image. And what this will do is it will save a file in your home directory called .febg, and .febg will include the command to the last image with a path to the last image. And I have in my Bspwm RC, I auto start Feh and just tell it to read from this file if it exists, else don't do anything. So and then if you have themes in your path, it will switch again. So this is all about the desktop background, the wallpaper. I now will bring up Firefox, so my default web browser, and let's go to my website. It's protesilaos.com. I can write it so that you can see here, protesilaos.com. And in my website, you will find information about all sorts of things, but the thing that is of interest to us right now is PDFD, the prots for Debian, which is an extension of my website, so protesilaos.com/PDFD. And here is the book. This is the book, and it provides all the information you need. It is a very detailed book. There are some chapters that are very comprehensive, very technical. For example, advanced features of my Bspwm session, chapter about my fonts, my shell setup, Tmux, Vim, the top panel. You get the idea. This is a very detailed stuff. So look at this. This is like 2,000 words just for some of the advanced features of Bspwm. I just spawned a web browser, and then I have temperature rising. And imagine, my website doesn't use any JavaScript. It doesn't load any fonts. Its CSS is minimal and stuff like that. It's just that web browsers these days are I keep this family friendly. I won't say, but yeah, web browsers these days are like, okay, you shouldn't be doing stuff like that. Why are you doing this to humanity? Let's close this with some of the advanced features. I prefer that you read the book actually, because it's very detailed, and right now I might forget something. I am getting a bit tired. I spent the whole morning just making sure that the book is polished and ready to be published, and now it's almost an hour or something that I have been doing this video. Just to showcase a few things about some of my custom things. Remember earlier that I showed you how you can move windows and switch focus in the given direction, so you can take this window and put it in the given direction. So this is what you normally do, Super Shift and then one of the Vim motions. What I have, however, is a script called Bspwm Smart Move. And what this does is, if you do the operations the normal way already showcased, it will perform the action I have already demoed. But I have an option as well in that script to do more than this. So I will, if you try to swap the focus window with something in a direction where, the focused window in a direction where no windows exist, instead of doing nothing, it will spawn a receptacle. I mentioned this earlier. Receptacles are actually, let's spawn one. So let's take one step at a time. So if I want to switch the focused window with something to the right, because a window does not exist there, it will spawn a receptacle. Now you see that half of the screen is empty. This is a receptacle. A receptacle exists here. A receptacle is an empty frame that awaits for windows to be sent to it. And you have to use a specific command. You have to target the receptacle specifically in order to send a window to it. So this is part of manual tiling operations. Remember I showcased earlier pre-selection. We have pre-selection and we also have receptacles. And in my book, I explain the difference between the two in greater detail. So if you try to switch focus to something that does not exist, it will spawn a receptacle. I used this using Super Shift and L. If you try to input the same direction again, you will move the focused window in the position of the receptacle. Let's replay this quickly. So I press Super Shift L. A receptacle is spawned to the right. I press the same key again, and I have a 3-column layout, effectively breaking free from the automatic tiling scheme. And then, if you will, you can balance the splits between those windows by using a key chord chain, super S and the letter B. So now I have a 3-column layout, something that by default is virtually impossible to do. No, not virtually, you cannot do it by default. You have to script things. So this is what this does. And then the automatic tiling mode will continue from here. You can do this again. Let's do this again. I input a direction downward. Because a window does not exist, you see again I have a receptacle to the bottom half. And if I move the window there, again I am back in a similar layout to where I started. Then you can rotate. Remember when we did the rotation earlier? You can rotate things and you are back to where you started. Or you can, once you do this, spawn a new window. And because of my external rules, this is all documented in my book, the next window will take the position of the last available receptacle, the first matching receptacle. So you see, the window took the place of the receptacle. And I can keep on doing things like this. You see now, you can have like any kind of layout, you see? And this is the difference between this and the pre-selection, just to show. A pre-selection always splits the focused window. So whatever the size of the focused window, a fraction of that. Whereas the smart move that I have here always splits the entire viewport. So it always splits in any of the cardinal directions, north, east, south and west. I think this is a very powerful feature because it allows you to be more expressive, more deliberate, and to put windows exactly where you want and not have to be fully committed to the automatic tiling scheme. Of course, you can use the automatic tiling scheme, but this is for the cases where you really need to escape from it, and this is what you are doing. I already showcased a bit dynamic desktops. This is also part of my advanced features. I'm not sure if there is something else I want to show. I'm not sure right now. As I said, this is not scripted at all. Let's have a look. Maybe I can read the book as well. Chapter 16. Yeah, I have more actually, much more. Yeah, so this was the smart move, smart pre-selection, just to show this. If you want to insert a receptacle, now I have only one window focused. By the way, let's remove all these nodes flags. You remove a flag by pressing the same key that inserts it. So super A and L will insert the locked flag, and then if you do it again, it toggles the behavior. If you want to insert a receptacle when you have one node, you can use smart move, what I had now. So try to switch focus in any of the given directions, and then if you switch focus again, it takes the position of the receptacle. So this is one way of inserting a receptacle, but you cannot insert another one. Whereas if you want to be more deliberate and insert a receptacle again, you press super and N and then the letter R. Now we have two receptacles. We have one here and one over there. And receptacles, as I said, wait for you to spawn a new window, and the new window will take the position of the first matching receptacle, the most recent receptacle. So you see here, I am where we start. I spawned the window in the last available receptacle. And again, you can use smart move. So I removed the receptacles. I'm not sure if I want to go in depth because we have already spent an hour and something. I don't want to bother you. It's better, look, it's better if you read the book. It's very detailed. I cover all the scenario. I explain in great depth the difference between pre-selections and receptacles, the niche that I have carved for each of the two, and how they differ in subtle ways, especially when you are using a dual monitor setup, a multi-head setup. I am not using one right now, so I cannot demo it anyway, but I explain in greater detail everything you need to know. I also explain some things here. So for example, let me showcase a very simple thing here, which is the focus mode. So if you press Super E and then the letter F, it will remove gaps, it will remove the panel, any padding or whatever, and now you are in focus mode. This is different from entering the full state mode of a window, which you can do with Super and F, because if you switch desktops, you are still seeing the same thing. Whereas focused mode removes all the decorative stuff. We removed the focused mode again. So yeah, focused mode is also mentioned here. But now I have a section in this chapter, multifaceted operations, multi-node actions, and I explain what these are. I will just read what they are. No, actually, why do this? Why do this when we can just read from the script? So these are the actions that are defined, and these are assigned to key chords, and the book talks about it in detail. So there is an action to kill all receptacles. So if you have spawned many receptacles, instead of trying to remove them one by one, you just invoke the hotkey that corresponds to this action. There is another that allows you to close multiple windows except the focused or the marked one. Again, this is very useful. So you have spawned many windows in the current desktop. Instead of going through each one of them and closing it one by one, you close all of them in one single action. There is another that allows you to lock, so to assign the locked flag to all windows in the current desktop. Again, locked, I will lock this node so that we can see. Locked means that you cannot kill it, you cannot close it by pressing Super and Q. You see, I am pressing Super and Q, but it has no effect because it is locked. I unlock it, Super and Q closes it. But no problem, no stress, because as I said earlier, Tmux persists. This is what we have, and we are attaching back to the running session. This was earlier in the video. Then I have an action here, summon all marked. So you can mark windows by pressing, by pressing Super and A and then the letter M, and you can mark windows across desktops, and then you will invoke this command, and it will bring all the marked windows to the current desktop. There is another option below, which is bring desktop here. Actually, I will showcase this right now. It's easy. So this is desktop 1. These are items in desktop 1, these 3. And now I am in desktop number 3, let's say. And I want to bring desktop 1 in desktop 3. You do just that. It's Super and N, and then Super and the number of the desktop you want to bring to you. You want to summon to your position. And in a similar token, there is send desktop there. Whatever you have on the current desktop, you send it to a new desktop, and this also works for dynamically generated desktops. One last thing that I want to discuss about dynamic desktops. Normally in Bspwm, if you want to go back to the previous desktop, you have to recall which one it was, or you have to press a different key. But I didn't like that, so in my dynamic desktops script, I have an option for back and forth behavior. So if I press Super and the number 2, which is the current desktop, if I press Super and the number 2, it will not just do nothing. It will not, that is to say, it will not keep focused to desktop number 2. Instead, it will go to the last focused desktop, which was desktop number 1. You see this? I pressed Super and 2 and I am in desktop number 1. And of course, if you press Super and 2 again, you are going back and forth. So this is the behavior. I think it's a very nice behavior, very easy to do. So this will go back to the last available. It only works on open desktops. I believe this covers it. the video could have been more comprehensive. It could have been more scripted as well, so that I wouldn't ramble as much. I hope I didn't spend too much time wasting your valuable time. I hope I wasn't very wasteful. And I believe that covers it. Thank you very much for your attention, folks. Just to close with some links so that you can follow my work. Again, as I said, I published a book, the final version, the official release of the book. The book is called, actually let's open the browser, even though my CPU will complain, but it is what it is. You can see, by the way, the behavior of the panel, that when you reach a certain threshold, it will start, it will change the presentation. I have scripted it that way. I think it's very good for the sake of usability. So now I keep screen key on. So my website is protesilaos.com, as you can see in the screen key as well. And if you want to go directly, I'm used to, by the way, I press Ctrl U, I'm used to the terminal a bit too much. So, protesilaos is my name, .com, and then / PDFD, which stands for prots dots for Debian. Prots dots for Debian. And this is complete guide to using my dot files on Debian 10 Buster. This book is free of charge and freed from traditional copyright restrictions. It is available under the terms of a copyleft license, Creative Commons Attribution Share Alike, version 4.0, the international version. And this book, as I said, was updated earlier today, so you can see here it was updated on the 2nd of July 2019, and this is a comprehensive view into my custom desktop session running the binary space partitioning window manager. Just to say that my book, as I said, concerns Debian 10 Buster. Buster officially releases on the 6th of July, so if you are reading this before the release of Buster, please wait a bit longer. It's just a few days longer. I have decided to do this because I want to make sure that everything works. I don't want any surprises, last minute surprises when Buster is out, and then I might be committed to some other task and not be able to address the issue in a timely manner. I prefer to release a bit early and have peace of mind. So this is it. Everything is described in the book, and then the upstream of my dot files is in my GitLab repository. So gitlab.com/protesilaos is where you can find all my work on the free software. I used to have a GitHub account. I still have it. I used to be active on GitHub, but I no longer am ever since Microsoft bought GitHub. And in GitLab you can find links to all my projects, including my dot files, and my dot files are gitlab.com/protesilaos/dot files. Just to say a very last thing, that my book actually uses a different repository. It's gitlab.com/protesilaos/CPDFD, which stands for Code for PDFD, Code for Prots Dots for Debian. And Code for PDFD includes the latest release of my dot files, and the releases are marked accordingly, and even these are very well documented, so you should always find answers to your questions. That's all for now, folks. It was a very long video. I hope I didn't leave out any piece of crucial information. Thank you very much for your attention and your patience. Hopefully this book will be very useful to you, and you will learn from it, as I learned throughout all this process of trying to document everything, trying to develop everything. That's all for now, folks. Thank you very much for your attention. Goodbye.